Hello, everybody. I'm John O'Loughlin. Welcome to McDuff Lives. And it's Friday morning, June the 5th no, it's Thursday morning, June the 5th of 2025. And so glad to have our good friends, David Cranmer Underdown and George Webb, to join me this morning. I asked David to join me to talk about what's going on with this Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong, who's in the news all the time now. And asked him a couple questions, and he said, "Well, George knows a little more about the medicine of that side of it." And I said, "Okay, well, let's see if George is available." And wow, he is available. And so nice of you, George, and you, David, to join us for an hour of conversation where we can get into some of the details of what's going on with this new approach to cancer and where does it come from, and who is he connected with? I know he's definitely connected with some people I would say are deep state, if that's fair to say. But anyway, welcome, gentlemen, and David Cranmer Underdown. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here with you guys, and this is I feel like a very important topic right now with the cancer moonshot and the announce of a BioShield. So I'm excited to talk about this issue.
Yeah, cancer BioShield. Where does this idea come from, David?
Well, the way I understand it is they had the when they had the September 11th attacks with the anthrax, they decided to make a unit that would do more serious investigation into bio attacks and um, so this is where the DTRA comes in and starts managing these issues. So that was that's where the Immunity Bio, the company that Patrick Sun-Shung started, and his previous company called Nant Works, and all these field of different Nant companies. I wasn't familiar with them at all. It was all new to me as the cancer, richest cancer doctor in the world. I mean, I know all about the LA Lakers and the LA Times and the San Diego Tribune and sort of these, investment portfolio that he's, involved in. But he was a new character for me. But he did the long form Tucker Carlson interview where he talked about this BioShield and this, and what I didn't mention too was that the Hunter Biden, the Beau Biden cancer moonshot is also affiliated with this, and this is where Patrick Soon-Shiong gets involved. He's the richest cancer doctor in the world, and so he has a lot of expertise to bring to this, kind of extension of the war on cancer from '72 with Nixon, and it seems like the kind of the same characters are involved. The one that really sticks out to me is a man named Bino Schmidt, who was a J.M. Whitney partner. He came up with the term venture capital, and he was Nixon's point man for the war on cancer in '72. And then he becomes a board of director with the Gilead Sciences Corporation with George Shultz and Donald Rumsfeld
Mm.
and Harold Varmus, who's at the New York Cancer Genome Center. So it's all these characters were separate. George is really the expert. He's the one that taught his kids how to do science. He wanted them to get into medical school, and so he really learned about the Human Genome Project, and he had a history with the computative analysis within the Human Genome Project and the combination of using technology and biology. So he has a wealth of knowledge in this field, and so when we were on the charrette, I felt like I really learned a lot because he knew about the approvals of drugs and the testing and how different tests and challenges are done to drugs and how emergency authorization can affect the status of these safeguards and why it's really a dangerous time to start just giving authority to people that have a John Brennan and a Wesley Clark background, or they don't really show that overtly, and that to me is really problematic. So that's why I'm happy to talk about this issue and really talk about his product, which is Activa, which is the BioShield product is the way he's framing it. So I think it's important to challenge that and challenge it in a way that's in accordance with historical, drug efficacy and safety protocols that are in place.
I can't talk about this without talking about my own cancer because, this is where I'm at in my life, is the persistence of this prostate cancer that I have. I think I get rid of it and then it comes back again. But what I did a show about 3 weeks ago on Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong and the Tucker Carlson interview that you referred to, and I took some clips out of it, which I think are really important. In that Dr. Soon-Shiong is the first prominent doctor to come out and say, "Hey, we've been doing it all wrong all along. What we've been wrong about is the immune system. We have not been protecting the immune system historically, and so what we need to do is avoid processed foods, right? That we need to get out and get a lot of sunlight." And a number of other things that are part of my routine. When I spend my day doing things like taking a health walk in the morning, getting the red light from the sunrise, doing my anti-parasiticals that I take, and highly nutritional food that my wife is such an expert at preparing, and I'm just very, very lucky in that regard. So it sounds to me like Patrick Soon-Shiong has kind of turned a page in the medical community to say, hey, you know what? We really do have to talk about processed food. We really do have to talk about people living their lives in a cave or an office building, not getting any sunlight, and we need to talk about the dangers of other things that we're putting into our bodies. To add this BioShield on top of it, well, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I do think it's good that we concentrate on the basics of health, and that is, our T cells, our B cells, our cells that find foreign substances, grab them, eliminate them, and keep us running in a healthy way. So it's a very, very important topic for millions of people right now, especially with the growth of cancer that seems to be a real pandemic, a real epidemic that is everywhere. I mean, I think everybody knows somebody that has a serious form of cancer at this point. Maybe not if you're a very young child, but most of us adults have been affected deeply by cancer in our families or our neighbors. I had my neighbor across the street die recently. He had cancer. He went through the chemo and all, but it didn't save him. It's a tragedy that, like I said on my show about Dr. Soon-Shiong the last time, I said, I don't know if he's a billionaire. I don't know if he's a good guy or a bad guy, but if we can solve cancer, I'm all for it. Well, George, thanks for making time to join us, because I know that our good friend David, he wanted you to have you say it for yourself about what you've been able to suss out about this Dr. Soon-Shiong, and particularly, I think your expertise is the deep state connections. I think John Brennan was mentioned this morning, and boy, when you say John Brennan, it gives shivers up my spine. When you say Gilead medicine, I think, no, Gilead is not, there's not a balm in Gilead, folks. That's just in the Bible, not in reality. George.
Well, yeah, John, it's so great to be with you again. And Dave, it's so great to be with you on a show. And I didn't think I was going to have this honor this morning. This is great. I just got back from 4 days in a cancer conference, and that was set up by the great Aaron Adler, who's in the chat here. And he got me in, and he got me into the Immunity Bio presentations that were there. And there was 300 presentations, and these are the top oncologists in the world. And John, I think they'd all agree with you. Get exercise, eat fruits and vegetables, cut out the alcohol, cut out drugs, get vitamin D. All those things were saying kind of as a baseline, and I'm all for stopping cancer and that. So we're going to go to the next level now, though. Is this some kind of induced cancer? Is this some kind of induced reduced immunity? And this is where you kind of cross into the woo-woo, where people start accusing you maybe of being a conspiracy theorist.
Well, wait a minute now. I mean, when you say, is this something that's been induced, then well, that triggers in my mind Adam Finnegan's book, The Sleeper
Yep.
Agent, and Eric Traub, and the creation of immune tolerance, and the fact that, and in SV40, which I think, is probably at least as likely as anything else to have caused my personal cancer, because I took that polio vaccine back when I was a little kid. And so, we have an explosion of cancers, but is that just turbo cancer from COVID or the COVID jabs? Or what I think is more likely is that the ground has been, prepared for this turbo cancer by feeding us, through various vaccines and other methods, the stuff that's already compromising our immune systems. We know that you can't just inject cancer in somebody that's healthy and expect it to spread, because it's been done and it doesn't work. They have figured out that they've got to compromise the immune system so that your cells can't fight back and then give you the cancer, and then that's going to kill you. And I think that's exactly what happened to my dad, who, we've spent 7 years now, probably 8 years, talking about George. So yeah, I think that the Sleeper Agent is a very important book that needs to be incorporated into people's thinking. And if there's anything I could do to get those people at the oncology conferences to read that book, I would do it. I find that his work is just being suppressed. I can't get people to talk about it. And there goes my camera. Sorry, there I am. Anyway,
Well, John, I agree with you.
The combination of the past vaccinations that we've all had, the present vaccinations that they're doing, and and then put on top of that the COVID, and I think it's all part of the scene. That's my opinion. But go ahead, George. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I was just going to say, I was going to agree with you that Adam Finnegan is a wonderful author, and you've had him on many times, and it completely provides all the citations and receipts that you could possibly ever want in 3 different intelligence agencies. So these people that say it's all in our head need to have their head examined. It's not all in our head. It's right there in Adam Finnegan's great work. But this does go all the way back to your dad. The Health Alteration Committee is not something we thought of. Yeah. The Health Alteration Committee is something that Bissell put in place. And initially, these programs were put in place to take out people like your dad who were going to adhere to the Constitution. They weren't going to play the CIA way. And then all of a sudden, oops, we're going to go ahead. And these experiments were done in the Pentagon. The sea spray experiments weren't just done on unsuspecting populations in San Francisco and Virginia. They were done in the Pentagon, where they had the doped air filters. And this may be how your dad got a reduced immunity as well, because, in his days in the Pentagon, who knows? But we know the CIA was doing these things. And the problem with the CIA, when they start being successful with taking out people they don't like, then they keep expanding it. They keep expanding it to other groups. And my theory of this is very simple, is you take all the immunity reduction experiments they've done in Africa, Asia, South America, Central America, etc. And then Dr. Sun Shiong is just basically pouring, it was like if you poured immunity out of a jar, and he's just pouring the immunity back in. And Dave is quite correct with anthrax. All these symptoms are generated, reduced immunity through anthrax, and then a whole host of things, not just cancer, not all the cancers. That's why Dr. Sun Shiong, he knows it's going to replace the immunity. He's positioning it for all cancers. He's even positioning it as a vaccine, and he's positioning it for HIV, and he's positioning it for all of these rare diseases, because he knows what it results from. It results from these reduced immunity experiments where they dumped out the immunity.
And this is what I think is so horrible, because this is like science fiction books, like Dune, I think, had a theme like this, where the whole population is dependent upon your getting a medication. If and look at all of the experiments that have been done to try to induce cancer in animals. Ever since the 20s and the 30s. How do you give cancer to a rabbit? How do you give cancer to a mouse or a monkey? And all of this finely tuned stuff. I was reading one yesterday where somebody got a Nobel Prize nomination for basically painting coal tar on the ears of mice and inducing cancer that way. As we know, coal tar has carcinogenic properties, but the idea of giving a Nobel Prize to somebody for figuring out how to kill an animal with cancer. Well, why are they experimenting on animals in the first place? It's because they want to use the animals as models to see how this stuff is going to work on people. And I would also add this, Tucker Carlson, in an interview with Kurt Weldon about a month ago, and I have emphasized this on my show. He said, and this is Tucker Carlson saying, I know about that. I know the CIA uses cancer to kill people overseas, he said. Well, if they can do it overseas, they can do it here in the U.S., or they can hand the vial to the Five Eyes and have the Mossad do it. They can have anybody do it. Once you have somebody of Tucker Carlson's stature, who's grew up with the propaganda of his father's Radio Liberty and Voice of America. I mean, he knows. So, and he says, well, most people don't know this, but I know it. I say, okay, all right, let's start taking this seriously, that the CIA can give you cancer. They can give you quick cancer. They can give it to you right away, or they can give it to you in a way that it kicks in later. It all again does also tie into Judith Vary Baker's writing in her story about trying to create a cancer weapon that would kill Castro. They didn't use it to kill Castro, but did they use it to kill McDuff? That's where I think we're stuck at. David, would you tell us a little bit more about the background of Patrick Soon-Shiong? I mean, I know that does he come from South Africa, or what's the deal there in terms of where his roots are?
Well, I really haven't studied him that much. I know he has a Chinese background, I think Hong Kong, and then I believe he grew up in South Africa and was educated in South Africa. I know George went to visit his billion dose vaccine factory that he's created in South Africa by the Kimberley mines. So don't know if there's a Rail's brother, British South Africa company, rebranded as Colfax connection there. But it seems like whenever I get the South Africa, I immediately think of the Bell Pottinger scandal, where they had the Guptas and the Oak Bay, which was connected to the megatons to megawatts and the Uranium One scandal. And that was Tim Bell doing the PR with this Gupta family from Mumbai that was, going into South Africa and taking over. And this sort of was the breakup of I can't remember the name of the Richmond tobacco guy, but his dad started the 1001 Partners with Prince Bernard as a faction of the Safari Club and the BCCI Bank. So, this is the Tim Bell Pottinger operation from my perspective. And the tight connection for that is Cofer Black and John Brennan, of course, because they were, they were the Bin Laden issue station starting in '99 under George Tenet, and then Cofer Black goes private into Blackwater and different groups, and then ends up at Burisma with Hunter Biden, and then Hunter Biden and his Rosemont Seneca partners are with Nathan Wolfe and Metabiota. And now we're right into the the DARPA predict programs and what George is talking about with this long-term DARPA project. And that's where I see him connecting. I mean, his wife is an actress. She was on MacGyver show very famously, which is a, show about gadgets and kind of a Q, character as far as MacGyver. But it was, I don't have anything against Patrick Soon-Shiong. I know that like the InfoWars group is really whipping up the anti-China hysteria, and that goes to Matt Pottinger is a key Chinese advisor, and you can also go to Michael Pillsbury, his history with China, and with Andrew Marshall. But these are the people I see organizing this, and then sort of at the end they put Patrick Soon-Shiong, a real likable guy, and then you sort of bury Wes Clark and John Brennan as the warlords, and then you try to dismiss people like our group that are talking about it, and not in trying to make it a anti Asian attack on Patrick Soon-Shiong. And it's I just don't see it. I mean, I feel like the track record of Brennan and Clark is so dark that siding with them is really a challenge to make a good argument.
That's well put. I think that anybody that's a friend of John Brennan's is not a friend of mine. What do you say, George?
I think you're exactly right. People don't realize Dr. Soon-Shiong went to the Clinton Foundation with John Brennan and was talking about a cure to cancer in 2009. In 2013, they were making the rounds to the elites saying, hey, we've got the way to pour the immunity back in. Again, if you know that you're taking what you're taking away and how you're taking it away, I think that Dave's quite correct in the whole immunity reduction program for South Africa first. That's where it was all tried first. And, getting people sick with radiation. We had Wouter Basson with the black bomb. The billion shot factory, by the way, is in Cape Town, is not far from where Wouter Basson got his degrees, at the universities. And I do think that that's where the immunity reduction was happening. I don't know if you were speaking, Dave, about Dr. Anton Rupert.
That's who I meant, the Ruperts.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That they also were working on immunity reduction. This is the 1,000 Partners. This goes to your Fabian thing, John, which is the British Anglo connection to South Africa to do all of our.
And the Dutch orange. Don't forget the Dutch orange part too. I wore my orange circle group for Tim Draper, in honor of Tim Draper and Brzezinski. That's why I've got the orange circle around my neck.
Oh, nice. Mm-hmm. Well, I think Dave's talking about colonial countries that are wanting to keep hold of their possessions. The British had the southern part of Africa. The Dutch had the north. Dave mentioned the Kimberley gold mines and the diamond mines. And this is the way of, colonialists to keep their colonial possessions, right? So that's where this whole thing comes from with this reduced immunity. They found out that murdering people straight out wasn't good. So then you have HIV, right, as a reduced experiment of reduced immunity. And then you have, all the people that did coronavirus with Dr. Birx, et cetera, were the same people that were doing PEPFAR with USAID in South Africa. So that's why I went to South Africa, is to look into PEPFAR. And again, that's Gilead. That's Donald Rumsfeld. Any friend of Donald Rumsfeld's not a friend of mine. David mentioned Bino. Bino is the guy with that Gilead put in with the cancer project. So again, we're seeing this isn't short term. This isn't the last 4 years. It goes all the way back to where you're talking about, John, with the Health Alteration Committee in Bissell. Yeah. And taking out the McDuffs first, and then, that works. Let's now apply this to the unlikables, the untouchables, the deplorables, etc. That's what's, and the part about this that I think that even Dr. Soon-Shiong on Tucker says is, yes, there are these new youth cancers. Spike. Yes, there are these reactivations, like your case, John, with your prostate cancer, where people were in remission and now have reactivation. Yes, there are these spikes in all cancers across the board, especially the blood cancers. So somebody knows something. And when I see these fixes that come out, that Dr. Sun Shiong is doing, this replacement therapy, it looks very much like a Clockwork Orange. Like Dave mentioned, it looked like, hey, we know we took it away and now we're going to pour it back in.
Yeah, and and if you don't allow us to pour it back in, then you're going to die.
And this is the Dr. Aerosmith thing where, Aerosmith's not a band with Steven Tyler. Aerosmith is another one of these stories like Dune where the doctor becomes the most important person on the island because they have the the serum that's going to keep you alive. And this is the whole idea of societal control. If you are won't wear a mask and you won't take our vaccine, well, then you're self-identifying, as a deplorable.
That's right, and you're definitely going on that list that Palantir is going to compile for President Trump. David, you mentioned Bo Biden a little while ago, and of course he died tragically. But how is that scene connected to Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong and the contemporary stuff we're talking about?
Well, it's mostly through the Bo Biden cancer moonshots. They did federal funding projects for cancer in honor of Bo Biden, and everyone remembers when he passed away, and with with Hunter and then the widow and everything. It was just a very messy situation that unfortunately has all of the Kofor Black kind of earmarks of terrible backstories hiding real tragedies. So people that are analyzing it look like heartless people that have no consideration for Bo Biden and the loss for Joe Biden, and it's just not the case. It's very unfair framing, and it's about the the Cancer Moonshot program. And of course, this ties right into the James O'Keefe, Jordan Walker video with the directed evolution charges, which was the big takeaway from the Pfizer, whistleblower, was the directed evolution element. And they don't mention Michael Dolston, who was the the Pfizer representative that had, been part of these programs for years. And George is the one that knows about his role in history with creating BARDA. We make fun of Rick Bright and the whole, make influenza sexy, and we got to beam it down from a satellite. But this is the CureVac, program that, Elon Musk is a part of. So, all these characters have their In-Q-Tel background. And so for me, I really, that's why the John Brennan and the George Tenet and the Kofor Black hit so hard, is because Mike Crow, the guy that was at Columbia running the Earth Institute there, he was tapped to run the In-Q-Tel program, and then goes to Arizona State University. That's where the McCain Institute is. That's where you get Danny Rothschild and other elements of the 9/11 story have ties to Arizona State. And also my Tim Draper Orange Circle group right here, his Draper University has a connection with Arizona State as well. And that doesn't even include the British connection with Oleg Deripaska, with the former Chancellor of the Exchequer, George Osborne, who was the Kissinger Scholar for the McCain Institute at Arizona State, where Mike Crow, the current president of In-Q-Tel, is the president. So there's a lot of conflicted characters that I feel like nobody ever talks about. And so when something like a Bob Malone running a domain program, which is a DTRA program, and then he plays dumb, like, oh, I was just doing the Pepsid AC, and I was the good guy. Like, it's very disturbing that independent journalists or major don't stress test those things and figure do some analysis, and not just say that Robert Malone has credibility and you should believe his Robert Malone because he was at the Salk Institute, and he got bullied by Inder Verma to the point where he got PTSD, and now he's, you know, fighting for mRNA because Inder Verma was a jerk at the Salk. It's just bad backstories, and I feel like it's hard when people defend the characters because I feel like those stories are tough. It's the Brennan challenge. It's hard to directly or indirectly support him without acknowledging his, you know, Bin Laden issue station, 9/11, his MQ-9, you know, Reaper drone program with General Dynamics. Like, this is all his history, and to just ignore it all and say, well, Patrick Soon-Shiong is a nice guy that wants to help people dying of cancer and is trying to save the sick kids. What monster would say something bad about this guy? It's just a John Brennan, you know, BS ploy to try to discredit critics. And it's terrible tactics, and I feel like Brennan should just come clean, you know, just come clean and explain his role and say that he has, you know, security clearance. The operational security is totally blown on this, and it's making a lot of good people look really stupid because they have to try to defend it.
Directed evolution to me is the same thing as eugenics. You know, they just repackaged the old desire of getting rid of the lesser humans, you know, and just leaving the good ones and the ones that are useful to the elites that know how to run the world. That old dream, it really does come from the British and the whole British foreign policy from the 19th century. You know, becomes everything is a matter of how much is it worth. You know, human life isn't worth anything more than the life of a giraffe or a hippopotamus or anything else you can shoot in Africa. And so get rid of the excess. And then now we have the ability to manipulate people's genes, and you know, my goodness, it really is right now what we're watching. And I think I suppose both of you would agree with me that right now they are, in fact, putting it together their directed evolution program, which once placed in, along with all the technological control systems that they have, is going to make it impossible for normal human beings to just get married, have kids, live a normal life without having to go to the system and get their shot or whatever else they require of us. In other words, it's virtual slavery. George, is that what's going on? Are we all being enslaved?
Yeah, I think it's a controlled, it's subtle. It's like Brave New World, like you mentioned, or George Orwell, 1984. If you get our soma, you're going to be okay. And if you don't, and you get outside the lines, then it's Clockwork Orange time for you. You know, that's the bad stuff's coming your way.
Yeah.
And this is very, Dave mentioned the Kissinger scholars and so forth. This is a very Kissingerian way of looking at the world. This is a Matt Pottinger way of looking at the world. He wrote The Last Nazi, which was about a Nazi virus, where he had Stan Pottinger wrote how, there it is. I think Dave's going to his bookshelf to get it, where we have the solution and the final solution. The final solution's not you know, there's Bo, my favorite. Tell us the breed that Bo is again, Dave. I forget.
Hello,
So
Bo.
he's Legato Romagnola, which means water, and then Romagnola is the part of Italy. And his new famous kin is King Charles himself has adopted a Legato Romagnola named Snuff, and he got him right before he and Camilla celebrated their anniversary and went to Rome and met the Pope before he died, and they also went to the Dante Museum for people that like the Inferno.
Well, and Romagnolo, I'm trying to remember what part of Italy that is, but when I think of Bo, I think of those poor people that were kind of guinea pigs, that we had a breakout of coronavirus in September of 2019. I went to the University of Siena, way up on a hill, very remote, and 30% of those kids had the coronavirus antibody. I think it was something along that line in that blood study. So it's like, how did you get the coronavirus antibody in September 2019? I don't think it's Bo's fault. I don't think Bo was running around Romagnola. I don't think he was legatoing around Romagnola. I think it was something else. I think it was some kind of like, I keep going back to the air conditioning systems, as Dave mentioned, because all of these people have patents that are doctors. They have patents in air conditioning. That's weird. And you mentioned Palantir, John. Again, these little things that make you go, Deborah Birx, again, Miss Pepfar got named to Palantir. Simon, as Dave mentioned, from the Cancer Moonshot got added. Peter Thiel and all of these folks with connection to JD Vance with tracking sort of reduced immunity. So this master database gets introduced. Trump is the one who's supposed to be stopping this, right? So we were trying to figure out, are they going to put in the database with Peter Thiel and Palantir because of JD Vance, or are they not? Well, we have the answer now.
You know, it reminds me of, how it felt for those of us like me who basically I was a lifelong liberal. I worked for the Obama campaign. I met Obama. I shook his hand. I was like thrilled that he won the presidency. And, it took about 90 days or maybe 100 days for me to realize that, no, he's not going to do anything different. He's another one of the deep state puppets. Remember our friend Andy Craig, who wrote the book Presidential Puppetry, and boy did he nail it. Everybody since Kennedy really has been in one way or another a puppet. Carter with Brzezinski, and Bush then, and all of them. It was a coup d'état, and we're now suffering the results of not doing anything about it for over 50 years. So the people that pulled the trigger on JFK are the people that are running the government today, is the successors in interest. To me, it's a horrible thing that our American people have not been allowed to know the truth about the Kennedy assassination in order to stand up and say, look, Congress, you got to do something. Congress seems to be completely owned now by, if not by Israel, then by corporations and big pharma. And ultimately, does it not all go back to the British wealth at the City of London and the ancient families that have so much wealth that they can throw at any problem and squash any bug that might be bothering them, because they have the resources. I was thinking about things like President Trump's first 100 days, and how, he was going to make the Russians and the Ukrainians make peace, and he was going to, solve all of these horrible world problems. And don't worry, man, I can knock heads. I'll get on the phone. I'm going to solve this in 30 days. But once again, I have the feeling that, my idol's feet are of clay, and they are once again a puppet. But I had hope. I had hope in Trump, but I don't anymore. Do you, George?
Well, I still have a little, because I have really faith in citizen journalism. We seem to be the ones that turn over all these rocks, and then they embarrass the heck out of these people for not putting out the data. I see in the chat they're talking about, Brightmore is talking about these Chinese spies that tried to bring in an agricultural contagion to infect our wheat and infect our cereal grains. University of Michigan, and boy, how long have Aaron Adler in Michigan and everybody been talking about how that Ono, the president there, has been bringing in these Chinese biospies. And again, like Dave said, as soon as you say it's a Chinese spy, you're being racist, right?
Uh-huh.
even though we Pocahontas ran the auto pen, and I'm 256 times more Cherokee than Pocahontas, but even then, they say you're racist. But then the FBI comes out and says we've arrested the two guys. Well, Greg Clark's been up there in Michigan, and Mark Buckley and Aaron Adler. They've been saying University of Michigan is a spy's den for China. Yeah. And now they arrest the two guys, and now all of a sudden it's the FBI is really great. They're really on the case, right? Well, we've been, Harry the Greek and all these people, we've been talking about how University of Michigan and Michigan State are two China spying hotbeds, CCP hotbeds, since when I first met Dave in 2020, with Eugene Yu and Connect and Vera Wang, or not Vera Wang, but whatever her name was, Wang, that was taking all the genome data. So I have faith in us, John, and I think we can embarrass the heck out of these people to the point where they have to come clean a little bit with transparency.
I want to take a question also from the chat room. This one from our good friend Deborah Johnson. Hello, Deborah. What was the Jeffrey Sachs connection? Jeffrey Sachs has been all over the media, at least my feed. It seems like everybody, Glenn Deason, just, everybody's interviewing him. Where does Jeffrey Sachs fit in with the Patrick Soon-Shiong and this new stuff?
I'll throw it to Dave on this one.
Well, this is a local one because Dr. Jeffrey Sachs is from Oak Park, Michigan, which is just an adjacent community to where I grew up. And so he's a double Harvard guy. And then he took the Harvard Institute for International Development program over with Larry Summers. So he has a deep history with Chicago boys and Milton Friedman economics. If you go to Operation Condor, I commented on one of George's streams a while ago about Rumsfeld taking classes from Milton Friedman at the University of Chicago when he was a congressman. And I wasn't joking about that. He was George Shultz was the chancellor of the Booth School of Business at that time as well. So you have this old connection. And Andy Marshall also went to University of Chicago, and it's where a lot of the personal connections for me come in, because Hermann Joseph Muller, who had the laboratory during the Manhattan Project at University of Chicago, he had James Watson of Watson and Crick was his student. They both moved to Bloomington, Indiana, to moved next door to my grandparents' house in Bloomington, and then you had he was the Nobel Prize winner for irradiating fruit flies, and was recruited by Julian Huxley, out of the fly lab at Columbia, which is where Jeff Sachs is now. So, for me, it's a lot of these very personal connections, and then going to like the University of Michigan that we've talked about. This is where I feel like this is all my hometown stories. So for Jeff Sachs, like I feel like I didn't know him. I mean, I studied economics. I knew who Larry Summers' uncle, Paul Samuelson, was, that wrote the famous, accounting textbooks that I used in college. But I didn't know the shock economic doctrine that he's famous for. And it seems like that's just kind of, he's just being rebranded as sort of a populist antithesis to Bibi Netanyahu right now, as sort of a Jewish guy from Detroit, with his dad, having these AFL-CIO connections as the lawyer with Walter Reuther. So that's where you're going to get the connection with the Kennedys, because Reuther was, advising JFK in the, late 50s, 60s. And that was when Robert McNamara was in Ann Arbor. He was working for Ford Motor Company, and this is where Bissell and the Ford Foundation comes in with this group. But that's the history of it. And, my personal cancer story is, I didn't get to meet my grandma and great grandma because they both died of breast cancer. And, the Dr. Mary's Monkey story with Mary Sherman, it mirrors my grandma's story very much. with her personal relationship. So that's why this stuff is like really personal to me. And it does feel like the Lindbergh and Ford connection is going to, I've felt that for a long time. Like that's what's hanging over me, even though my, great grandmother said that Ford had my great grandfather killed and then she burned to death later. I mean, that is the background I have. So when people say that I'm not empathetic or don't know the characters, or I'm not, I'm not a minority, so I can't understand the struggles that other people have. It's very deeply hurtful to me that that people would be authorized as part of a Solic program to use that kind of language, because I just don't feel like that's accurate. And I feel like the characters that I've met with between you guys and the people with the neighborhood news, I've tried to be as nice as I can with the incredible discomfort of all of the personal connections to all these things. And when people don't know you know the the blind pig in Ann Arbor, as a landmark, and they don't know that really hurt me deeply. So that was something where I, get very uncomfortable, and also had someone in that group that was, when I told the story about my grandfather and his, dad dying, grandmother burning, then him having to go to the sanitarium, to the Trudeau sanitarium, and then his wife dying of cancer, he wasn't empathetic at all. Somebody that we do a lot of research with, he, acted like, that was the justice for it. So for me, I personally get really hurt by those things, and I never forget it. And it shapes my entire, worldview on working in these groups. But that's the reality of it. And, so I'm just, I'm happy to talk about all the characters, but I really don't. I just get very nervous when you have the, Dave Portnoy, University of Michigan, anti-Semitic attacks going on so publicly right now. Like, it really bothers me, because it just goes back to the Dan Gilbert and Matt Ishbia stuff that I've talked about with Hunter Brook and Enron and David Bose and all the characters from that. Like, I just feel like they will never give up, and that it's just like, I just don't know what to do. I feel like I try to talk about it and be peaceful and understanding, but I don't feel like there's an effect.
Identity politics, when you talk about, well, they just play the racism card, oh, you're not of the right race to understand this, or you're anti-Chinese, or you're, of course, anti-Semitic. I haven't heard the phrase anti-Palestinian bandied around very often. But I think there's, what I'm saying is that identity politics is driven from the control centers of like London and Washington and New York, to keep themselves in control. And that's the basic divide and conquer. Yeah. Don't listen to the white guy. He doesn't understand anything. He might be the greatest expert in the world on something, but if he's white, you can't listen to him. Or if he's worse, what if he's with MAGA? Well, forget it. Anybody with MAGA, has got to be stupider than a box of hammers. George, you're not stupider than a box of hammers.
I try not to be. Well, Scott Adams got in trouble for saying that. It's like, no matter what I do, it's like 35% or 40% of folks that were of color said, no matter what you do, Scott, we're not going to listen to you. Then he said, well, why bother? I think it was higher than that. And they called him a racist. That's why it's okay to be Cherokee now, though, John. And that's why I self-identify as a Cherokee. That's why I say, and now Steve Ricchetti, the chief of staff of Joe Biden, the guy I went to school with at Miami, he says that Pocahontas was running the auto pen. The people that are really in the know, I think Jeffrey Sachs just came out and said that a Cherokee was running the auto pen. And it feels so good to be 256 times more Cherokee than the person running the auto pen. So that's how I deal with it, is I take that sliver of identity that they're going to try to play against me. And I just celebrate that sliver. And that's how I self-identify. If they can play that game, I can too. And I've been to the Blind Pig, where Dave is talking about, in the university at Ann Arbor, which is a place where people go to exchange ideas in a, in a safe place, sort of a marketplace for ideas. And no one is racist there. No one is anything there other than you're at a university, you're talking about great ideas, right? And so
that's what I want to do. I want to talk about great ideas. And once the ad hominem comes, I know it's over. Says, oh, you said this, or you side with that person, or you're white, or whatever. It's just anything that goes to the messenger as opposed to the message.
Yep.
People that have have a history of understanding, that conversation is different from argument, but no, every conversation has to be turned into an argument as fast as possible so that they can keep us all stirred up and divided. That's my take. And, I don't know if I have any Cherokee Indian blood, but I don't see how it really matters in this world. The United States of America should be a place where it doesn't matter. At least after so many struggles with race, but no, it's one of the control features that they're always going to give us, the race card.
Well, and people think that it's okay. She's going to hide behind that. I'm Pocahontas, and I'm Cherokee, so that's what allows me to run the auto pen. And as soon as you say, well, wait a minute, we didn't vote for you, Elizabeth Warren, there's a whole constitutional thing that talks about constitutional progression, with the amendments and so forth when somebody is senile or whatever. Joe Biden was incapacitated. No. Now you're being anti-Cherokee, right? So, I mean, they're constantly hiding behind. It's almost like Hamas with the hiding in schools and hospitals. If you're going to end up killing a lot of innocent people, in any kind of terrorist war. If you hide behind, use these, hostages, if you hostage people in front of you. So that's what they're doing. And this reduction of immunity, getting back to the reduction of immunity, is what is happening. Adam Finnegan has talked about it. Rixey's talked about it. There's been a lot of people talking about it with COVID. Dr. Sun Shiong even says that there's been a reduced immunity from the COVID, but it goes back all the way to the Health Alteration Committee, all the way back to your dad. And the reason why they stop with hepatitis is you can't control what people drink or eat, right? Is in terms of poisoning them. The reason they stopped with HIV is they couldn't aerosolize HIV. They've been working on this aerosolizing reduced immunity for 60 years, 70 years. And now they have it with Coronathrax. I believe it's Coronathrax, but we'll see what it eventually ends up being. But isn't it interesting that a Coronathrax BioShield comes out now with Dr. Sun Shiong? Does that sound like it's connected to John Brennan with anthrax and 9/11? Now all of a sudden an anthrax antidote comes out?
It does. Whitney Webb reported something about someone was coined the term Coronathrax a few years ago, but that didn't get a lot of legs. I have to go back to Adam's study of immune tolerance and the idea that we've been given vaccines that have sleeper agents in them. The effect of the spike proteins that overwhelm the immune system and cause it, even if you have one, not to act, not to stand up and quash those foreign proteins that are giving us cancer or giving us HIV or giving us Lyme disease or all of the other things. And so to me, I think anthrax has been certainly a big part of current weaponization, but the problem of immune tolerance having been induced in us, and I think it was Rixey recently that published that that this is passed through the placenta, passed into the baby from the mother now, so that as Adam Finnegan has shown, they've created a pathogen that not only will make the mother sick, but will pass through to the children and make them sick and their children's children sick. So we have to go back, into the even before the Health Alteration Committee, and to, like 1951, 52, when they were figuring out these things about SV40, when they were figuring out HeLa cells. And one of the things that I really want to know is has SV40 been turbocharged with HeLa cells, so that is that how it is so persistent? Why can't my immune system finally wipe it out, stomp out the last vestige of it? Well, because it has some it has immortality, like the HeLa cells. And so I have to say we've got a hell of a problem on our hands here in terms of cancer. And I don't have a lot of hope that this BioShield thing is going to be a placebo or a cure-all for us all. I think what we really need to do is keep on digging and find a way to keep our immune system strong, and to rebuild those peoples who, because people don't know. People still going to McDonald's. People are still, eating the crazy candies and, junk with all that processed chemicals in it, that are foreign proteins that are going to trigger, if you have immune tolerance in you already, are going to allow those latent viruses and diseases to come forward. Very interesting. We're at the end of the show, but our friend over at Candirex says SV40 causes HeLa cell formation. Well, there's a lead to follow up, and thanks for that, Scott.
Can
Wow.
I just add one thing to the anthrax that I think is important? Is the Ira Baldwin as a character. He was the doctor he was the professor at University of Wisconsin that was the mentor to Sidney Gottlieb, and he's also the person that set up the lab at Vigo Ordnance Factory, which was where they did the botulism and anthrax for Churchill in World War II, and that's also adjacent to the Commercial Solvents Corporation, which was doing acetone patents from International Chemicals in England, and that was where William Patrick III started his career, who later becomes the Stephen Hatfield mentor, who's the Rhodesian, mystery man about, what is Stephen Hatfield doing? And, God forbid that we accuse him of being the 9/11, anthrax mailer to Judith Miller and to the National Enquirer in Lantana, Florida, where Roy Cohn's childhood friend, Gene Pope Jr., started that. And that's the same guy that used to ride in the limo to Horace Mann High School, where our friend Bill Barr went. So to me, there's a lot of, continuity. And this is also the Columbia group, which is where Sachs is now. It's where Hillary Clinton is. And it also has the Eisenhower history at Columbia. It's a great university and everything. And we've done the tours. I do the videos. It's got the Riverside Church, which was a John D. Rockefeller and John Foster Dulles project. But that's where a lot of the special operations, I believe, come from, is out of Columbia and New York City. And that's where you get this connection with Roy Cohn's network with Mega Group and whatnot, is through that, and through the Brofmans, of course, and that's where Epstein sort of comes into the picture as the financier for Edgar Brofman at Bear Stearns in the 70s. So that's where I see those things connecting.
You mentioned Hatfield, and I have to mention there's a new series of YouTubes coming out under the title Patriotism Unhinged, and the author of that is a man named Jim Manning. And one of his shows on YouTube, he mentions Stephen Hatfield, and how Stephen Hatfield's girlfriend was living with him, and at a time when he had all these Rhodesians, like military people from Africa, it was Rhodesia at the time, coming over and visiting with him, and they would go out in the mountains and shoot guns and do all kinds of things. And the reporter says, well, and he told her, you know, that you can't mention any of this. You can't say anything about it. And then she ends up dead not too much longer later than that. You know, is very suspicious about this guy, but of course he walks away with a nice paycheck from, you know, got $5 million for the offense that he suffered when people actually suggested that maybe he did. Maybe he was the source of the anthrax attack after 9/11. So
Can I
many.
just add that his
Yes.
girlfriend said that Stephen Hatfield said if she talked, he threatened to kill her and make it look like a suicide. So that's what she said.
Yeah.
And then she ends up dying right after the 9/11 attack. And Bruce Ivins, who got blamed for it, never had access to dry anthrax, which is the weaponized anthrax. He only had wet anthrax. The only person in the story who has dry anthrax is Stephen Hatfield. So, and then he becomes a hero of coronavirus. You know, you just can't make this stuff up. So yeah, there's more to this story, John. This is going to be fun.
Well,
And
folks,
I just wanted to say too that and just as a refresher, the anthrax attacks in 2011 was what started the BARDA and this whole moonshot program.
2001.
2001. That was the proof of concept chemical attack, biological attack that put these policies into motion. So that's why it's important.
guys, 4 years ago, we got together here on Mystery Island to celebrate my dad's life, the 50th anniversary of his death by quick cancer on June the 6th of 1971. And we got together and we produced a lot of great video and shows and things. And just to mention, you know, because tomorrow is the anniversary, my wife and I do a mutual show on Fridays. And so we'll be talking about McDuff and my dad and all the stuff that we want people to remember and to know about his life. So that'll be right here at McDuff Lives at 11 a.m. Eastern Time here at Rumble. Also, of course, on YouTube, X, and Facebook. So join us wherever you'd like to. I hope that folks can join us tomorrow to talk a little bit more about McDuff and celebrate once again all the great things that he did in his short life. George, you've been a great help to me in uncovering my dad's life. David, I can't thank you enough for all the work that you do, and I'm just thrilled to have both of you back here together with me here, the Screaming Ospreys. So thanks, David. Thank you, George. Thank you, everybody. And we'll let the Ospreys send us out. Bye-bye now.